without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Tatiana. I'm director of FemTech Lab Accelerator. I'll be moderating this panel today. And what a panel we have. We have a very hot topic and we have a very hot panel to unpack this topic. I couldn't wish for a better team to spend my afternoon on Thursday. So for those of you guys who are new to our community, although I'm sure most of you are already familiar with FemTech Lab and what we do, but just in case, we are a global platform for innovators and disruptors in women's health space. And our goal is to support this amazing wave of products and innovations and support the founders and help them go to market faster, which is one of the things we'll be discussing today, help them to fundraise and help them get their innovations into the hands of billions and billions of women. And this is what we do in our Accelerator, and this is what we try to do outside of Accelerator to help as many people in the ecosystem as we can. As an Accelerator, we run 2 cohorts a year in spring and autumn, and our founders are supported by a strong network of mentors. We have over 250 mentors, partners, advisors on the program. We have corporate partners like ACT Ventures supporting our founders. All of our mentors are leading industry experts, and we have over 400 investor partners, VCs, early stage VCs, and angels. So this is us. And we are actually accepting applications for our 7th cohort, which will kick off on the 7th of March. The deadline to apply is on the 27th of January. So, or 28th of January, sorry, on Sunday. So don't wait around. If you are an early stage FemTech founder, middle stage FemTech founder, feel free to apply and you will be part of this fantastic ecosystem. So, and one more thing to add, we also launched a conference, Decoding the Future of Women conference, which is another thing we're very excited about. I keep saying we launched it because we launched it last year, but this year we're bringing it again. It will be a 2-day conference this time. It'll be the biggest event in women's health in the UK, in Europe, if I may say so. So it's definitely something not to miss if you are interested in women's health. This is the place to find out what the future is holding for FemTech. Right, so without any further ado from my side, I'm, like I said, super excited to have this fantastic set of experts on the panel today. So I will just pass on to you guys to introduce yourselves, and Karina, our fellow FemTech, the original FemTech founder, it's over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Tatiana. I'll do a quick intro, as Tatiana has fantastically introduced FemTech Lab already. I'm Karina. I'm one of the co-founders, kind of relevant to this particular panel. So Katya and I have spent a lot of time building out relationships with different players in women's health, companies, partners, and I've spent quite a lot of time trying to figure out how the market works, what are the different routes to market, how are startups approaching, what investors are seeing. So I'm hoping that I can share some of that, and it could be valuable to many of you. And prior to FemTech Lab, I was in B2B, building products in the B2B space. So I also have some background selling and building products that are sort of tailored for the B with the C in mind in the end. So I'll try to weave some advice from that as well, from not even go-to-market, but kind of product perspective as well.
Karina, thank you very much. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, happy to do. Hi, my name's Emily Napier. I'm a new business lead at Philips. So I look after maternal health and women's health programs at Philips for Western Europe. So covering 18 countries. I myself am based in the UK, and great to be here and to discuss this topic today. So I work a lot with insurance companies, also on different kind of new business model areas of the business as well. So on the D2C side, subscription models, kind of new business retail ventures, but also with B2B. So I cover kind of a magnitude of areas within Philips.
fascinating, and it's exactly the kind of things we'd love to dive in deeper during the discussion. It's great to have you on, Emily. Thank you. Henrike, thank you so much for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Henrike Granzow. I'm a consultant in reimbursement, market access, pricing, so everything really on the commercial side on your product development. And I think in this panel, my background and my point of view is a bit more from the sort of traditional pharma medtech market access approach. So I've spent the last 14 years working in different CROs, life science consultancies, but also investment management with bigger and smaller companies in the space. I now have my own consultancy business where I basically combine sort of the two heads of working more with startups and smaller companies in highly innovative spaces. So a lot of digital health and connected health, as you can imagine, but also coming a bit more from the traditional medtech and pharma space. So very pleased to be here.
Fantastic to have you. Thank you so much, Henrike. So just a quick reminder, please add your questions to the Q&A chat. I'm sure you have plenty. The earlier you add them, the more likely we'll have time to answer them. But I'll dive in straight away. And my first question, Henrike, is to you. So if we have all these different go-to-market models available, as everybody knows, reimbursement pathways, different insurance pathways to market, or employee benefits. We've got B2B, B2C, B2B2C. So kind of going back to the basics for an early stage women's health startup or healthcare startup, how does one even start evaluating different go-to-market pathways? Which one is appropriate to their business? How do you even start thinking about this?
Yeah, that's sort of the big multi-million-dollar question. And yeah, so the short answer is, yeah, you need to look at all of the different options, because first of all, it largely depends on what type of product you have. So, for instance, in women's health, what is quite interesting, it's one of the medical areas that is not necessarily, I would say, fully medicalized. So obviously we have aspects of women's health that fall sort of into the realm of what our traditional health insurance covers. And again, think about the basics. What does health insurance do? It's ultimately sickness insurance. It deals with the diseases, illnesses, and their prevention. But we have parts of women's health that are sort of a priori not fundamentally diseases. So if you think about menstruation, fertility, so they're in this sort of in-between world. And your business model and your go-to-market will sort of on the very first principles depend a bit where you really come in, what area you touch upon. And I think the second big thing to consider is there is not necessarily one right go-to-market strategy. You can do things sequentially, so really that you start in one way and build your whole business model and business upon, say, a B2C, then try something else, B2B2C. You can try different things in different markets. So it really comes to early on, planning for different scenarios, analyzing your product, the market, and being open-minded. We see a lot of trial and error, but at the moment, that's a bit part of the game and part of the business.
I really liked what you said about there are so many different conditions that or women part of women's life period, menopause, that is not disease, and it's not viewed as a disease, and it's not, but at the same time it's lacks focus from, for example, insurance companies possibly. Thank you very much, Henrike. Emily, so Philips, of course, a large company, but you have a lot of focus on women's health specifically, and you have a very multifaceted approach to different go-to-market business models and different partnerships. So how does Philips think about partnering with all these different organizations? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we've actually been working with insurance companies in dental insurance with our Sonicare brand for about 6 years. But we've recently started in the women's health space, and maternal health is the area that we focus on within that. So those probably that aren't aware, Philips actually have been present within maternal health for about the last 40 years. So we have our Philips Lab and the baby products. We also have the ultrasound machines in hospitals, but we own Pregnancy Plus. A lot of people don't realise that it's owned by Philips, but it's the world's #1 pregnancy app. And actually, we're super lucky. So 80% of all pregnant women in Europe are using the app to support them on their pregnancy journey for themselves and their partner. So when we looked at kind of the go-to-market approach that we wanted to have over the last year, we've developed a B2B program. And this is something that we've just brought to Europe. It's been live actually in the US for a couple of years now. And they work more with the government over there. But the reason to go B2B for us was really to get the scale in a more effective way. So insurance obviously have high level of members. We know, say, between 2 and 4% of any population is pregnant. So we can really try and reach, a good group of people rather than trying to convert one-on-one through the D2C app itself. We're fortunate that we already have quite a high base of average 80% of the target users on there already. But it can be very cost effective, to leverage different partnership opportunities. Because if you go through traditional marketing advertising to attract new users, that can be quite costly. So in Europe, we actually started a partnership with Groupe Mutual in Switzerland in October last year. So this was our first European private insurance partnership. So we use the Pregnancy Plus app to basically reach their members and personalize the journey for them, which is all around improving pregnancy outcomes for themselves, to create different content, education for their partner, covering what could be used during pregnancy. And the reason for that is to kind of hope to increase NPS, look at satisfaction, retention, loyalty of those members, and really just provide the best pregnancy experience as a total. So we work with quite a lot of partners. I mentioned insurance, but also just other partnerships with organisations like Save the Children, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, White House, CDC, NHS. So there's a lot of other charities and partnerships that we work with, and we're always keeping an eye on scale-ups, new innovation within the maternal health space as well to look at other opportunities in the future.
This is fascinating, and I know that you work with startups as well, to join forces to offer joint solutions or separately just scouting innovations. So I would love to kind of dig deeper into that slightly later on. But working with insurance, from your experience, how did you find it? Because it can be really hard for large organizations like Philips, let alone for a smaller startup with just a tiny speck for them. What would be maybe your insights for founders who are listening in? Can you share any inside information what insurance companies are looking for? Is it easy to partner with insurance companies? Is it better for smaller companies to go with companies like Philips, maybe to do a joint proposition?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult and challenging industry to try and crack. I think it's super important to understand it to start with. It's very fragmented and it differs drastically in Europe, even depending on the country. So when you look at the UK, Germany, Nordics, it's 90% public health that are making a lot of decisions. With the other parts in Europe, it's predominantly private insurance focused. So understanding that those different approaches was the starting point for us as well, to tailor the proposition, the model, who you talk to, how you talk to them, to understand really their pain points. So what is it that they're trying to solve? Is it the fact that they might have a low NPS? Do they have unsatisfied customers? Do they want to increase their acquisition or grow their market share? So what are they trying to do, and how can you or your solution help to really improve that? So I'd say that helps build the strong value proposition, and working with partners can really help to strengthen that. So you don't need to have, I think, the whole end-to-end solution yourself. You can work with different partners that can help provide that. I think starting small is also okay. So even big company like Philips, we still look at minimum viable product or pilots to really prove that the program works, that it's successful before scaling it. Building case studies, you can then take that to other companies to prove that it's successful. Compliance regulation in the insurance industry is very important. It's highly regulated. There's very strict standards, laws, guidelines. So just being aware of that and what is needed to approach these companies as a starter point. So I think doing kind of the groundwork first, being to fully understand the landscape before you get into it, also helps gain the insurance trust if you go in already understanding what they are dealing with as well. But we really find like networking, attending industry events within insurance, it's quite a small knit community. So you can quickly kind of build a lot of stakeholders and try and get to the influential decision makers as well within those communities.
That's super useful. Thank you, Emily. And we'll dive deeper into that as well. But Karina, so we've discussed so far. You have to, before you consider different go-to-market models to explore, you should look at your product, you should look at potential go-to-market opportunities. And I think it's useful to see that all the different pathways that large companies go to, that you can also maybe explore together with them. But kind of going back to the basics, if you are a startup of a women's health company, a founder of a women's health startup, what do you think? Because we were talking before about B2B, B2B2C models. What is your view on D2C, and how should a startup decide between? And I think this is a question that our founders have when joining Accelerator. One of the problems they want to solve during the Accelerator is which model do they go to, D2C or B2B, B2B2C? So what's kind of your opinion on that?
Yeah, thanks. I find what Emily and Henrike were saying actually very insightful as well. And yeah, like in terms of taking a step back, I think generally, of course, it depends on the sort of product you have. If it's digital health or if it's a medical device, it's obviously a completely different game. But what we often saw in the Accelerator, and we see meeting many companies, that very often, there's this like fork between going directly to consumer versus pursuing like a B2B2C path, so to speak, whether it's through insurance or whether it is through employee benefits, which seems to have gained some popularity, at least what it looks like on LinkedIn in the last couple of years. And I do think what we've seen is that investors recently have been responding very well to B2B models, which I think has kind of impacted early stage founders a bit. And we've also seen that direct to consumer is proving to be a bit harder than maybe many people originally realized in terms of like acquisition, customer acquisition and retention. And it's quite a creative, intensive way of acquiring customer. It's less scalable, so it is hard. And so we've seen more people do B2B, but I do think we're now kind of in this interesting place where a lot of companies are exploring that. It seems like employee benefits, a lot of companies are trying to go into similar directions, almost diverging from direct to consumer. And it makes me wonder whether that opens an opportunity for brands that are and founders that are more creative and do have that as part of their founding team DNA to maybe build something that actually speaks to the final consumer. And I think that ultimately with any model or route to market, I think if you are going through insurance or going through employee benefits or going through fertility clinic or whatever sort of be your product you're trying to kind of acquire your customers at scale through, it ends up becoming a game where you have to figure out what that sort of middle customer will need, like what Emily was saying with insurance. What ROIs will they have? What KPIs will they have? And you have to sort of satisfy that and also satisfy the ultimate like patient and customer satisfaction as well. So you ultimately have to then cater to both the buyer or the sponsor and the sort of end user as well. And it's a different from also product proposition can sometimes be a different value add, and you do have to cater to both. And just final thing before we move on, what we notice is that many early stage companies, when they come in and they try to approach, whether it's insurance or again, employee benefits or whatever it is, sometimes they do it a bit too early, with not enough proof points or not enough milestones reached, where it's just not yet possible. There's just not enough validation of the product, or not enough to the point where, you know, someone would comfortably take the risk and distribute that product for you, whether it is to their employees or, you know, patients in their clinic, etc. So we also find that to be something that founders often end up having to come face to face with, and diverge into building a D2C brand or a D2C proposition stronger first as well.
That's an excellent point, and actually one that I wanted to jump into, because it's wherever B2B model you choose, it's a longer sales cycle, whether it's insurance or direct to employers or corporate employee benefit platforms. So at what stage do you think, and it's one of the questions in the Q&A chat as well, there's a startup which has an MVP of a coaching platform for holistic weight loss. They want to pitch to organizations. They have no idea how to pitch to people. They are open to do a pilot for free, to get as much data as possible. What would be your advice for this startup to start approaching organizations? And I think that speaks to your earlier point about, if it's an MVP, what is the value to the organization? So you still need to have, don't want to answer for you, but you need to have a solid proposition, especially when you go to organizations. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. And I think also from the organization's point of view, if it's a solution that caters to a very particular area of health, I think is harder. It's not, it's definitely possible. And we've had companies like Postpartum Plan and others that are going to organizations and sort of acquiring one by one, but it is a longer sales cycle. And it is, especially if your solution is within a certain area, it's very hard to compete with larger players like Peppy, for example, that are very active in the employee benefit space now, across different areas of women's health. It's very hard to compete for, I think, for customers when there's like a bigger fish in the markets already. So yeah, I think it's possible, but I think challenging.
And there's another question that kind of leads to the overall discussion, and it's, Emily, to you, but I think we all can contribute. Emily, did you find that you needed to build out your B2C base before you were able to get traction with your B2B clients?
So yeah, I mean, for us, Pregnancy Plus started as D2C, so it was very much free. As it was still a free app, majority of it is free, and then we have a premium paid for service. So that's at the moment kind of the business model, if you like, to try and convert people and you know, make them see the value that you can get from having the premium subscription. So we still have that D2C, but the idea is to work with companies that basically provide those premium services to the members, but paid for, if you like, or reimbursed by the insurer. So for us, it was very much, we started D2C. That was the acquisition that Philips had. I think we were in quite a privileged position of being able to acquire, you know, a company in that way that already had a strong user base and then grew that existing user base. Of course, if you start from scratch, it was, you know, Pregnancy Plus, it's small things like it started 12 years ago when the App Store was first created. So we've got a, you know, great algorithms now, you know, the search function, the amount of reviews, everything that comes to being, you know, when you type in pregnancy, because you're pregnant, the app appears first. So there's a lot of things that the team did when they first started to create that success from a D2C point of view, to create the organic kind of view and reach. And that's how, you know, then you get peer-to-peer recommendations. So D2C worked very effectively for the team. But for now, we have, you know, 80% of people using the app that are pregnant. So then how do we convert them to the premium model? And that's the bit where we see is interesting to then approach B2B and more of the reimbursement piece with insurers, but providing better health benefits for pregnant individuals.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Emily.
If I can jump in there for a moment, the other point around the D2C might be that we know from investors. They like to see some of the D2C sales a bit as a proof of concept, so to give them a bit more confidence. So I think that is one of the things also to consider. while obviously keeping in mind all the caveats that we have around what Karina just explained in terms of customer acquisition. So it's a bit of a trade-off. If it's worth to maybe start a pilot, do a bit of D2C to improve your minimal viable product and make a point to partners and investors.
100% agree. I think the more traction you can show, and the more proof points you can show, the easier the B2B conversations will be. Couldn't agree more. Thank you very much, Henrike. Right, so we had a bit of a general discussion, B2B, D2C. I would like to now dive deeper into various go-to-market models on the B2B2C side. So let's start with one of the most popular ones, especially in women's health, employee benefits. So there's a surge of startups trying to focus on working with employers and employee benefit platforms. It's become a very popular option. The market can be, some might say, a bit saturated. So let's start diving deeper into employee benefits. And Karina, my question here is to you. So given the surge in startups venturing into the employee benefits, what's your view on this route to market, employer as a route to market for FemTech startups? And how do you think the employee benefit market is evolving? And where do you see, or do you see opportunities lie there? What's your view on that?
I can definitely comment on the fact that we have seen like a big trend in applications that we receive into the Accelerator, that companies more and more indicate in their go-to-market route planning that they're going to do B2B2C employee benefits. Like at some point, it's just almost every application you open, that's what everyone is doing, which I find something for founders to pay attention to as a trend. If everyone is doing that, what does that mean? And we've also, on the other hand, we've had companies that have done this successfully. And in particular, like professional services and law firms seemed to have been quite receptive to this, like pockets of like professional services firms that have like a billable hour model, or for whom like returning back after, for example, giving birth is super important, and it's like a proper return on investment in getting that kind of platform, for example, a postpartum plan kind of platform on board. So yeah, it depends, I guess, on the proposition. We've seen some success, and again, like I said, law firms seem to be spearheading that quite a bit, I noticed anecdotally. But on the other hand, we've also received some feedback from, we're talking to an investor, for example, yesterday after our admissions panel, and we've heard some feedback from that community that actually, even though everyone seems to think that it's a brilliant idea, in the US you have Maven, in the UK in Europe you have Peppy. It's very challenging to compete, and the sort of another word in the street is that maybe HR is not as keen to now onboard all these platforms internally. So it's not like a market that was like ready for this surge of digital health, not just women's health, but like digital health propositions that are coming their way. So that's sort of what we've observed and what we've seen. I do think in general, if you're building a business and you have a very strong conviction that that's the route that you're taking and it's going to work for you, and you know how to make it happen, how to convince, how to scale it, it could be absolutely, for you. And it could make complete sense, especially if you have connections or exactly have an angle to market. But that's just what we've been recently hearing from kind of all sides.
And I guess, again, back to those proof points that you need to be linking your solution to specific ROIs that HRs, companies care about, absenteeism statistics. If you can show those, again, through some traction via D2C or other ways, that will improve your proposition. And I guess if point solutions are also going to become more difficult for to partner with employers. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Karina. So Emily, this is where I would love to dig deeper into, again, mention point solutions and Philips' work with scale-ups and startups. I know that you're partnering with a startup looking one scale-up, Fertility Health, and you want to partner with one employee or a couple of employee benefit companies to provide an overall end-to-end journey. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about that offering with Fertility Health? And just in general, when do you see collaborations with scale-ups? How do you assess companies that you want to join forces with? Maybe what stage of those scale-ups you look at, what criteria you have to assess those companies. This is all to help the founders who are now listening, who want to potentially join forces with Philips or other corporate companies, just to understand what, how do you think about these partnerships?
Yeah, so it was at the last year's decoding event that you guys did, that I met Helen from Fertility Health, and we were having discussion around employee benefit companies, and we were both talking to them separately. And Fertility, a fantastic company, for those not aware, those based in London have an amazing campaign out at the moment, Out of Home, which is very impressive, and they're really doing great work in the women's health space. And we're both talking about the challenges when we're talking to employee benefit companies, because, and I think you've alluded to this already, they want like an end-to-end solution. So they don't want loads of different companies with different areas of women's health. HR managers are not looking for that. They really want, your one or a couple of companies that are able to provide different solutions. So for us, we're very much in the pregnancy space, but of course, fertility is a big issue at the moment. We know that, a lot of couples are struggling to conceive. Maternal age is increasing. There's a lot of factors that are also contributing to different health outcomes and complications during pregnancy. So it should be an area that employers are very focused on, but there still is not really that kind of support at the moment from employee benefits perspective. So, we said work together with Fertility Health to basically create a joint pitch and partner up. So we both, have our different services and solutions that we provide, but basically saying, if we can go together to a company and say, we can help you out with your fertility or pregnancy or postpartum journey for employees. So whatever stage they're at along the journey, they have the relevant support, guidance, help, in whatever form that looks like for whatever company size that they have. It's a good starter point. So I think, we do see a rise in kind of trainings on things like menopause, for example, coming into the workforce. So there are certain women's health topics that are being picked up with more traction, but there still is a key role for employers to play around destigmatization of women's health conditions and really providing those support. I think return to work is a huge one for women. But yeah, even the journey of getting pregnant, and we know a lot of couples are struggling with that. So why not have your employers support you during that journey? Especially when you look at days, off to have different treatments or services, and that could be a benefit as well. So when we look at kind of companies as Philips, that we would like to work with or like to partner with, partnerships can look completely different depending on what services or how they work together. We tend to, in terms of partnerships, look more in the scale-up phase. So this, obviously, due to the size of Philips, we have global scale and market reach. So we look for companies that also are maybe able to provide solutions in multiple geographies. Because this varies depending on the program, what pilots we want to do. If there's a specific thing that we want to learn in a market, or say you want to work with public health, NHS is a very specific example, so the UK could be an outlier there. But the criteria for us is very much looking at strategic alignment. So are the missions aligned, are the values or the goals aligned to what we're both trying to achieve in the long term? Obviously, always looking for cutting edge innovation, technology, integration possibilities as well. So on our existing solutions or digital services, how easy is it to integrate? And then also track record. So, past projects or partnerships that companies have had, what's been the satisfaction levels from the clients or customers. And ultimately for us, it needs to be supported within clinical expertise. So what's the claims that you've had backed up, the research and compliance. I think that's very important for corporates to have that kind of trust, understanding and cooperation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Emily. You've answered a couple of questions in the Q&A chat already. But there's one in terms of innovation that you've mentioned. I guess there's a acceptance that maybe Philips is only interested in hardware, or can we discuss AI software as well? Somebody's asking.
Yeah, I think, it depends on the product, the solution, the service, what you're trying to do, if it's relevant, if it's a good fit, if it makes sense, I don't think it's limited in that way. Philips had traditionally been a hardware company, obviously consumer products, but I talk a lot about Pregnancy Plus, which is of course our digital app. So that's the main focus that I work with as well alongside the products. So I think anything that supports digital health is interesting for us.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we are also ready for a poll. We would love to hear from our audience. What go-to-market models are you working on right now? Is it B2B? We will be just adding the poll. You should see it right now. So your go-to-market model, is it B2B? Are you in pure D2C or both? I can see already some answers popping in. It's great to see that almost equal split, or we've got both more startups doing both B2B and D2C.
How fun. And if you're going through like a reimbursement pathway, like through I don't know if it's a public health or NHS, I guess also choose B2B just for.
Okay, just continue to add your questions. We'll look at them at the end of the call. It'll be interesting to see what split is there, or it's an equal split. Right, so we've discussed employee benefits, and I would love to then, since we are on the corporate side, corporate streak, I would love to continue with corporate partnerships as another option for Oh, actually, looking at my notes, I apologize. Insurance was the next one. And Henrike, since you've worked a lot with medtech and pharma, and I guess this is where insurance comes in quite often, what's your view on, and just in general, working with insurance as a route to market? What are the general considerations for early stage companies? Maybe you have some insights for specifically for women's health startups and insurance, and when is it the right path, and maybe when are there any ways when you know that maybe insurance is not for you to go to, at least right now, to save people some time, because it's a very lengthy process.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's precisely what scares a lot of people. I think it takes long. You need a lot of maybe clinical studies, evidence, and then there is a whole complex process and dossier you need to go to. And yes, that is true. I still think, that your standard public health insurance reimbursement, especially in Europe, sort of remains your holy grail, especially if you're in an area that really it concerns a disease. It is generally funded through health insurance. Then you want to be with the health insurance. So just to explain this maybe a bit more, the point is, despite the fact all the pain you may have to go through in terms of clinical studies and preparation of evidence, if you think about it in sort of the medium and long term, it means you have a guaranteed payment. It means every patient who will probably get a prescription or gets this through a more official route, the product will be paid for. And so in the end, it is much more efficient. Again, let's go back to the customer acquisition cost. In a way, once you negotiate with a healthcare system, or say a few large insurers, you have 2 or 3 customers, and you don't need to go to everyone. So in a way there is certain efficiency there. So I think it definitely is a model to entertain if you have the possibility. I also think it is important to continue looking at the dynamics in women's health, because I think it is important that we sort of get these larger parts of women's health maybe out of the lifestyle section and start opening the conversations with public healthcare systems, with insurers, about more routinely funding women's health, not only women's illness. So I think we see very exciting changes in a lot of other areas of lifestyle products and how they're paid for by insurance companies. I mean, obesity is super hot right now. Everybody is talking about the new obesity drugs, and I think we'll see a lot of debates coming in the future. Another area is smoking cessation, which actually has probably over the last 10-15 years asked precisely the type of questions companies have asked, the questions we're discussing here. Will employers pay for smoking cessation because health insurances are not paying for your nicotine patches and treatments? And so the companies in that space have sort of precisely tried to see if they can go down different route, the direct to consumer, the employers, associations. And we're now starting to see more willingness to recognize addiction as true healthcare problems. And I think that's for me, while I think with a long-term view, it's important to also continue to have the conversations with policymakers and insurance companies to really bring women's health to the level where we all want it to be.
Yeah, it's a lengthy process, but hopefully insurance are waking up to the importance of women's health. And
I think the other thing is also if you're sort of a bit scared of the larger process, there are also innovative ways to work with insurances. I mean, Emily's example is just one of them. You already got one right there. But what we've seen also in the digital health and women's health space is that you have products. I think there was a few years ago, before digital health funding became more standardized in Germany, for instance, there were examples of products that had deals with health insurance funds that would get reimbursed, but only if the patient completed the whole sort of training or whatever it was that the app provided. So really on usage-based things. So there are ways to sort of reassure the insurers and have pilots. We see a lot of pilots in women's health, digital health, also here in France, where individual companies work in the endometriosis space. So again, there are sort of ways to find your way into sort of what routine reimbursement is in a bit more of an original and innovative way. So it's not all set in stone.
And Fiona is leading in the Q&A that, do you see part of our role as female founders being to campaign and raise awareness, or is that just too much pressure to add to the barriers that female founders already have to battle against? And I guess it's a question to everybody.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. Well, what I just said, I'm not going to repeat it, but to really put women's health, into the responsibility of our public healthcare systems. And I think for sort of FemTech founders, it's also important to keep the debate and discussion at a high level. You know, I've seen a lot of sort of angry reactions. You remember when last year there were some of the reports from the NHS on women's health, how it's not on par with sort of other standards. And I think it's important to really have a proper discussion. So we don't want to come across as angry little girls, because then we don't get taken seriously. And I think founders in that space have an important role, and yeah, really bring this confidence across, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Karina, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I really agree with what's been said about the fact that even though insurance might be a challenging route, it could also be sometimes hard is not bad. Sometimes it's like the competitive advantage. And figuring out, like, we've had companies like Happy Sneeze, for example, which is an incontinence digital health solution that spent some time figuring out the reimbursement pathway in the US. And yes, it takes trial and error and a certain amount of clinical validation, but once you do it with one provider, it's so much easier than to repeat it again and again. And then you're so much more ahead other players in the space that might want to start up a similar business. So yeah, I think it's like it's like building a difficult technology, it puts you ahead of the game. So I do agree with that. I've also I don't know, just as a tip with insurance, there's like working on pilots and working with innovation teams within insurance. Sometimes it's set up that way. We've also had companies in the past that did pilots with an insurer and worked with the innovation department, and then that kind of not leading into like a long-term commercial relationships. So in general, like through some of these partnerships, I think it's very important for founders to not just kind of meet the interests and the KPIs of the innovation part of the business, but from the very beginning, understand how you're going to align long-term. Otherwise, it could be, I don't want to say a waste of time, but it could be just not a very productive use of resources. So just to caution for that and working with insurance as well.
100%. And we've had a couple of insurance reach out to us, and I know other accelerators from the innovators team asking for announcing the challenges to the community and asking for solutions to come forward. And a couple of our startups applied as well. There's a grant and a mutual co-development available. So it's a great route. Emily, I know you've already touched upon working with insurers, but maybe you can add any additional insights into what insurers are looking for. Have you observed any shifts in their kind of in how they're thinking? Do they like is women's health becoming more big on their radar?
Yeah, so we're working with 2 insurance partners at the moment. So I mentioned Group Mutual in Switzerland earlier, but we're also working with Live Well by Zurich. We have a partnership with them in the UK that looks at like holistic health. So obviously during pregnancy and then after pregnancy as well. There's a lot of different health topics that we're covering within that kind of education content program. But yes, I think there's a lot of companies are aware that pregnancy is a very high cost area for them. So they know that anybody who's going through pregnancy, it's going to cost them a lot of money. But they're starting to think about preventative care and looking at those solutions, but it's still quite early. So when we're talking to companies, they get it, but I think there's still a little bit of convincing that needs to happen about, how can we really, through better education, through better access to care and digital solutions, really help with preventative care during pregnancy, but also after, when we know a lot of conditions can occur postpartum, that can be helped alleviated or supported with relevant support beforehand. So I think, we see insurers also, they tend to have quite low NPS scores. So people see insurers very much as they're the claims platform. They just pay the bills. They don't really have strong relationships, but they do want to create these brand connections. So they are looking for these positive touch points. So I think if you as a brand, as a company can show that actually you can provide that really beneficial support, because you have that relationship with your members, your individuals, and especially for pregnancy, we have people using the app 2 or 3 times a week. They're coming back every week. The content's changing, see, on a weekly basis. So we know we're very regular touch point for a lot of individuals. So insurers like that, because if they can brand the experience themselves, then people are, because it's quite a tough physical and emotional time during pregnancy. But if they can have this positive message, throughout, that's reinforced by working with a partner, that's something that we've seen has actually been quite beneficial for them. So I think that, we also see, we ran a survey on our Pregnancy Plus platform in Switzerland, where I looked at, like, is there a correlation between if you provide great benefits during pregnancy through an insurance and then their likelihood to stay with that insurer? And we saw 73% saying that they would, if they experienced happy, extremely happy with their benefits, that they would then stay with that insurer. So that directly links health benefits for women, and we know that 80% of them are also making the decision on which insurance to buy on behalf of themselves, but also their family. So women should really be a key target audience for insurers, but haven't been traditionally. So this is something that I think there's still a lot of information that we are giving to insurance companies that they then are taking on board and then are shifting and changing and having more focus on this. So I think they are seeing the trends, they are seeing the costs, particularly postpartum, and working more towards the prevention side of things. So I think being able to support women, through this journey, through this life cycle, they are seeing it as a big health benefit. But not all of them, and I think it depends on the country, the region, the area, the focus, the public versus private. So there's a lot of different factors that are contributing to that. In some countries we're seeing definitely more interest than others. In Spain they have really great maternal health benefits provided through different resources as well. So but yes, I think preventative healthcare is definitely a focus for insurers.
Preventative healthcare, that's fascinating, Emily. A ton of insights, and I'm just was looking through the comments. Thank you very much for joining and for sharing such great comments. People are making notes, and I'm glad you're finding it a useful discussion. Please continue to add your questions in the Q&A chat, and we'll make sure that we have answer them. Oh, we have 3 minutes left. Oh my gosh. You see, time is escaping me. It's such a fascinating conversation. So I've had a few more questions to unpack, but I guess since it's the end of the conversation, I have a question that I wanted to kind of share with all of you. Maybe what is one piece of advice for a FemTech startup figuring out their go-to-market model? Karina, maybe you can kick us off. What would it be for a startup?
One piece of advice.
Just an easy question.
Very easy. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's like one go-to-market route that fits all. And I genuinely think that's for every business. And that's how we also think about our business as well. You have to, as an entrepreneur, think very opportunistically and time appropriately. Like, what is right now a route to market that is ripe and ready and makes sense for you, like with quite level-headed thinking about it, and then hustle really hard to make it happen, even if it's difficult, I think is, but just to think of it opportunistically rather than like theoretically, what actually would be like smart game move right now based on everything in the market, not based on where you wish the market would be.
That's really insightful. Thank you. And I guess not jumping on a bandwagon of one go-to-market or the other that's popular right now. Maybe it's the opposite, thinking about your proposition, as you were saying earlier, and finding that unique pathway for you. Emily, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think Karina make an excellent point, but I think and Philips as a company as well, we look at the market trends of where it's going in the future, and sometimes we like to think we're there now, and we speak to companies like they're already there, but they're not quite yet. So I think that is great advice to say, look, where is the market today? Like, where can you make an impact today? Of course, build the strategy for the future and where it's going, and make sure you're not falling behind and you're still, going on ideally ahead of that trend. But definitely, I would say personalize your pitches, reach out to people, network. The events are really important to build that network, build that relationship, really to understand from peers in the industry, but also people that you want to talk with, connect on LinkedIn. I think people are very open, in my experience, to reaching out to kind of iterating on ideas, collaborations, partnerships are also very much formed that way. So I think, use your network, use your relationships, use sessions as well to connect with people. And I think within women's health, I found everybody is very much wants to help and support each other. So it's a fantastic networking community to be part of.
100% agree. Thank you very much, Emily. Henrike, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, well, other than that, you can already think that I'm going to say, think about standard routine reimbursement, evaluate it. No, other than that, Emily basically just said it. Talk to others, see what others have done, what their experience was with business models. It's I think it's precisely that what I see in more the digital and innovative health tech and what you see from the FemTech space. It's so much more open than what you have sort of the traditional pharma and biotech, and there is everybody trying everything in terms of business models. So it's you will find somebody who will share their thoughts, their successes and failures. So yeah, be sure to talk to others and don't stay in your own little echo chamber.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Henrike. I love that. And just to look at the poll that we've had, so from the people joined today, we had over 60 people joining. The 30%, so slightly larger portion, are focusing only on B2B, 28% are focusing on D2C, and 42% are focusing on both. So I guess that's very much aligned with my thoughts anyway. All right. Okay, wonderful. Thank you everybody for joining. It was a lovely discussion. Thank you, wonderful panel. I just could sit here with you and continue chatting and chatting, especially if we had a glass of wine, it'd be a brilliant evening. But I hope we'll have you back again. Super hot topic, and I think we can take it further and deeper into the discussion. Thank you again for joining. There will be a recording available. We'll share it with everybody. Thanks again. Don't forget to apply to the Spring 2024 Accelerator cohort. Wonderful. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.